All right. Good morning. And it's Esther getting ready for the big Hayom, the big day. Let's see what it says here. Erev Purim, 13th of Adar. Well, first thing is Tachanin. We don't say Tachanin at Mincha today. So, the Frierdiker Rebbe said that his father, the Rebbe Rashab, said the following. Rebbe Rashab said that I am certain that when a chassid sits in the Beis HaMidrash and teaches or recites a mimer of Hasidus publicly, that my forebears, ancestors, are filled with joy, and their joy is adequate to provide that chassid and his children and his children's children with an abundance of blessing materially and spiritually. Wow. So you see the power of saying and learning Hasidus. Here we go. Here we go. Lessons in Tanya. Page 438 in Lessons in Tanya. And in the classical version of the Tanya, page 84. It's about a little more than halfway down the page. Line begins with Hanefesh Hamaskelas. Okay, we are in the middle of a discussion of another tool in the tool chest, another weapon in the armaments to get rid of the blockage, the Amalek, right, the coldness, the blockage that blocks the Nefesh Elokis. And this is the key thing for really this whole section of Tanya, which we've been learning, that one's ability to come from Galus to Geula, that's one way he expresses it, to annihilate or transform the Klippas, is in the capability of everybody simply because there is a Nefesh Elokis inside of us. And if we learn the techniques for just moving away the darkness, the Nefesh Elokis will shine. So the technique that we've been speaking about in the last few days, even started before Shabbos, is a technique of Simcha, to bring oneself to Simcha, to be besimcha, regardless. Now, the regardless is a problem, because issues come up that seem to impede our ability to be besimcha. So the Alter Rebbe gives us some techniques and some things to think of. One is to realize, someone said a video, I put it in here, about a guy in a snail costume. I don't know if any of you have watched it, crawling across the street. And there's a famous metaphor in Hasidus about, in the Alter Rebbe, actually, it's in Tanya, about the shell of the snake. The shell of a snake seems to be something separate, right? It's on his, as we say, it's on his back. He's carrying it on his back. But the fact is that if the shell becomes removed, the snail dies. So the point is that all this separation, that seems to be separation, is not separation at all. It's a perspective. It's a real perspective that's caused by the tzimtzum, but it's not something apart from Hashem at all. And if you realize that everything that's going on is a part of Hashem, and as the expression goes, Ein ra yordim min shamayim, and no bad can possibly come from heaven, so that can be a source of joy, even the negative. And particularly, if you can take what seems to be negative, as we've been talking throughout the whole Tanya, and transform it, or subjugate it, or transform it, to be able to capture those, what we call, what somebody in the class called these Beinoni moments, create Beinoni moments, when whatever may be rising up in terms of negativity, you push it away, because when you push it away, again, back to the analogy of of what's covering over there, you push away what's covering over the Nefesh Elokis, and the Nefesh Elokis shines. So if you can do that, great. And if you can just think about it, that can bring you to Simcha. Now, he brings another tactic, I would call it today, for coming to Simcha as follows. Another thing, that can bring a person, if utilized, the following: redoubled joy of Hashem. Think about the great pleasure that you cause lefanav yisborach, in front of Hashem. And again, as always, I always want to touch lefanav lepanemius, panemi, face. The great pleasure that you give Hashem in His face to face, and in deep, in panemius of Hashem. Be'emunazu, when through this emuna that we have just spoken about, that you really know that deep inside of you, and you can touch that place deep inside of you, which is a place of emuna, that really there is nothing apart from Hashem, and you utilize that emuna, deskafia sitra'acha, to subjugate the negativity, because knowing that the negativity is only there for the purpose of you subjugating it or transforming it, because there is an advantage of light which comes from darkness. So it's just something it's there, it's designed for you to push it away, and it's given to you the capability to push it away, which is called eskafia sitra'acha mamish, and even more, and to transform the darkness, the dark spaces of one's life into light. Because the darkness itself, that choshech, is a choshech haklipa. It's only a darkness of a shell, right? Like the shell of the snake. And the klipa also means skin, like the skin of an orange. You peel it away to eat the orange. You take away the occlusions that the snakes, that the shell of the snake, that the shell of the snail seems to be occluding darkness, and you push away that darkness, right? Shehu chayshich haklippas, because that darkness is a darkness only of a klippa that's covering over something delicious, which is the nefesh elokis. So this is the darkness of olam hazeh, achurmi, this coarseness of olam hazeh, amachshichim, which darkens, umachsim, and covers over, al oro yisborach, on God's light. Ad es kates, until the end of time. Ad es kates, until the time of the end. As is written in Eov, it's written kates som l'choshech. There's an end that can be put out. The end will come. Literally, an end will be put upon darkness. Hainu kates hayomim. This is the end of days. When the spirit of impurity will pass away from the earth, and the glory of Hashem will be revealed. All of that is a quote from Yeshayahu, from Isaiah, from Shikosav Lekamen. And a note on this expression, Kates Hayomim, the end of days. This note is actually brought in lessons in Tanya, actually, and many other places in Chassidus. How Chassidus views this expression, the end of days, right? In the world at large, particularly amongst believers in the dominant religion in our culture, the end of days is apocalypse, right? The end of the end of the end. In Chassidus and in the Torah, the way this is taken, it's an end of a certain era. It's an end which is characterized by the appearance of the Aramaic word yamin, which means the right. Yomim in Hebrew means days, and yamin, which is on the page here, in Aramaic means right. It's an end of a time that existed before the appearance of God's right hand, which God's right hand is His chesed. So that's how we take in Chassidus the end of time, the end of days. It's the end of the time of darkness. It's the beginning of the time of the right hand, of the time of chesed. And in that time, that will be the time in which the spirit of impurity is removed from the earth. Befrat, and specifically, where there's more darkness, where there's more klippa, is in the artsois avoidus gilulin, in the lands which are the lands of idol worship. She'avirim tameh, where the air itself is tameh. You know, it says about the land of Israel that the land of Israel, the avir, the air of Israel, mechakim, it makes a person wise. The air is different, the physical air. But of course, the physical air is different because the spiritual infusion in Eretz HaKodesh is different than the spiritual infusion in Chutz La'aretz. And that's why it's called Eretz HaKodesh. It's a holy land because there's a revelation there of the levels of Kedusha, the levels of transcending all worlds. Soivi Kol Almin is the level of Kodesh. As we say in Kodesh Baruch Hu, that the Kodesh, the Soiviv should be drawn down, Kodesh Baruch should be drawn down. And in the other lands, the darkness is much thicker. So in the time of when the right hand is revealed and God's kindness is revealed, the major impact or major change will be in the lands outside where the spirit of impurity is thicker. Well, mole klippas, as you said, the lands outside which are full of klippas, and the situr achra. Okay, so that's the way it will be in the future. Now, when a person thinks about this and thinks, what can I do about that? Well, you could do everything about that because you have the power within you to move the klippa from away from you, to move it away from the relationships that you have, to remove it away from your place in the world, right? Now I'm back inside. And there's no simcha in front of Hashem, meaning into the panimius of Hashem, like the light and the joy, the advantageous light and joy, which comes from the transformation of darkness into light, the bringing of or from the darkness. And this is what it says. This is what it's written in Tillim. Yismach Yisrael ba'oisa. It says the Jewish people rejoice in their maker. That's the plain pshat. Yismach Yisrael ba'oisa. The Jewish people rejoice in their maker. Shekol misha hu mezera Yisrael. Everybody who's from the seed of the Jewish people. Yesh le'lismoya. Every person should be joyous b'simchas Hashem, in the joy of Hashem. Asher sos v'somach. When is Hashem happy? B'dirasi b'tachtoinim, when he dwells down here below. Remember, Hashem's panemius, deepest desire, which is comes from the panemius of the crown, which is tainug, which is delight. Hashem's deepest delight and joy is when he is here. Well, of course, he's always here, but when he's revealed here, b'tachtoinim, shehem b'chinas asiya gashmi, esmamish. So, in other words, we're darshaning this pasuk, Yismach Yisrael ba'oisav. And this is how he reads it. V'zeh shekosav ba'oisav. Oisav is plural, right? It says in their maker, but there's a plurality here. So, makers. Where is the world of plurality? It's the world of Asiya. Ba'oisav, Lashon Rabim, the world of multiplicity. Shehu olam hazeh, which is this world. Where does Hashem have the greatest joy? When the world of multiplicity, which multiplicity is, remember, created by Tzimtzum, right? Before Tzimtzum, there is always only He. Hu v'shmei bilvad, there's only He in His name alone. Hu levade, who He alone is, that's always the case. But Tzimtzum creates a reality of multiplicity, and with it, a reality of separation. So when does Hashem have great joy? When that reality of separation is removed and the world of inclusion and singularity is revealed everywhere. And that's what is written, Lashon Rabin, the world of separation, the world of multiplicity, Hagashmi, the physical world, which is Hamole Klippas B'Situr Achret, which is full of the shells, and the other side, which is called the Reshus Harabim, right? Another play on words, right? You can't take on Shabbos, you can't take from the Reshus HaYochid to the Reshus Harabim. Reshus HaYochid is the domain of singularity, which is the domain of the panemius, or the essence of Hashem. The domain of Rabim is the domain of multiplicity, which is created by the Tzimtzum. And on Shabbos, you can't go from one to the other. But in the Shabbos that will to come, there will be no this and that, because the world of multiplicity will be the state of reality of the multiplicity will give way to the state of the appearance of the singularity, the Rishus HaYachid, everywhere. And that's, but meanwhile, it's called Rishus HaRabim. Utura de Pruda, this is Lashon of the Zohar. It's also called, this world that we live in, mountains of separation. Back to the snake, the snail. That shell, which appears to be separate from him, is really not separate from him. It's part of his life and his life force. So this world of separation is not really at panemius, it's not separated at all. And all we have to do is bring out the panemius of it, which is the singularity of everything. Meanwhile, however, it's called the mountains of separation. And when those mountains of separation when they are transformed into light, when you do the exercise and create the states of mind and consciousness which allow you to see through the multiplicity into the singularity, the light shines. The separation is transformed into light. And one creates, each one of us creates from the experience of living in a world of separation and separateness and disconnectedness into a world of singularity and connection, which is called Rishus HaYachid. What's the Yachid? Who is the Yachid? The Yachid is Lichudei Yisborach, is God himself, or his blessed unity. B'emunah zu. And this ability to do this, harks back to yesterday's Tanya, is a function that's built into us. It's a built-in capability. We're delivered and born this way and created this way with a emunah deep down inside of us. And I pointed out yesterday that it's brought out in other places in the Hasidus that the word emunah, if you're looking at it or see it in your mind's eye, is the same word as a craftsperson, an uman. An uman is a craftsperson, one who takes reality and shapes it according to a creative impetus. So emunah is the ability to take what we're given and shape it and form it into a faith. That's the word we use in English for emunah, a faith, but really it means more a work of art. And what's the work of art? The work of art is created by removing the klippas and allowing the Nefesh Elokis to illuminate all of our reality. That's today's Tanya. And what a better Tanya than the eve of Purim, when all the darkness was been dispelled by Nepach and was turned inside out, upside down. That's the power that we have. Okay, I see a hand up. Yehuda.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
So it's still hard for me to get a picture of what it means to reveal the light in the darkness and the mechanism, the mechanics of it. Is it enough just to be aware that the klipa hides Hashem's light, or is the purpose of all the mitzvot is an action that we have to take to do it?
The latter. Being aware of it is a start, right? If I'm aware of a capability or a potentiality, that's wonderful. But I have to bring the potentiality into actuality. And you said the right words. The mitzvahs is the way you do that, because mitzvah, how many times do we say this, is meloshin savta v'chibur. That's what makes the connection. To be aware that you can reveal the connection is the start that gives you the energy to do it, and the doing of it. Masa hu ha'ikar. Masa gets to the root. And what's the root? The root of the roots is a nefesh elokis. And the more you do it with this consciousness, it's an interesting thing, because we are all aware that one can practice the mitzvahs of Yiddishkeit and not have the spiritual enlightenment. It's just, I do it. But if you bring to the enlightenment, if you shine the light on it, which is what Hasidus is designed for, to shine the light on and take, sometimes I think of it as when I was a kid, we used to take a magnifying glass on a leaf in the sun and burn the leaf. So this Hasidus is the lens, which burns away the klippas and allows you to see what's underneath and say, that's what I have. Let me put it in action. Action is what does it.
So the acts themselves actually burn through the klipa or melt away the klipa or just disintegrate the klipa so that the light that was always shining, that's always there, can finally shine fully. And that's the thing that Hashem, that gives Hashem the highest pleasure, is when we burn through that klipa through our actions, through our awareness that there's nothing but light and him, and then we act on that awareness.
That's what gives him the greatest pleasure. Absolutely. That's why he wants to live down here below, because there's no pleasure like this in any other world, because the clippers aren't so strong.
Is there even klippa in other worlds?
Well, there's klippa, yeah, because there's tzimtzum. Wherever there's tzimtzum, we don't call it klippa, but the function of klippa, which is to cover over, exists in all the worlds, because worlds are created. Olam milashon helam. Remember, olam. Right. Concealment. So, but where is the concealment the most? That it becomes what we call a klippa, a snake, right? The Zohar calls it mishka dechivya, the snake of the skin of the snake, or the shell of the snail. That language is generally reserved for this world.
Or evil.
Or evil, yeah. And the seal is for sure not, because even the tzimtzum there, it says that the tzimtzum doesn't lemechase. The tzimtzum doesn't cover over in the world of Atzilus, but it gets deeper and deeper. Yeah. Yeah, Rivka.
Hi, it's very, very beautiful. Perfect for Purim. I don't want to spoil it, but would you consider doing tomorrow's Tanya today? Since tomorrow is going to be not a really easy day for people to come in to this class at whatever time.
I'd consider it, but I'd rather not, truthfully. First of all, for one reason, I'm not sure why tomorrow morning is a big deal, because, I mean, you're not up all night, but...
No, where you are, Minyan, I would assume Minyan's early.
I'll tell you what
Where we are, it's the middle of Purim.
I tell you what I'll do. I'll do it tomorrow, and then those who weren't here will review it. Okay?
Just
on the next day. No, that would be... No, good. No, and I'll do it, but in that reverse order. Okay. You get me what I'm saying? I'll do tomorrow as usual, and for those that weren't here, just like on Shabbos, we'll do two portions: the previous day and the next day.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Okay. So just remind me.
Then, of course, it's Shushan Purim, but
yeah,
we get a 2-day Purim.
Right. So you'll get 2 days of Tanya in one day.
All right. God willing. Yeah. Thank you. Very, very beautiful. Yes.
Anybody else?
Easy fast.
Devorah, your hand is up. Go ahead, please. Devorah.
Yes. Hi. Sorry about that.
Hi. No.
Hi. I'm a little bit confused. Is the klipa beneficial?
Well, yeah, it's absolutely beneficial if you eat it, get rid of it, right? You know, that in a clip of an orange or any fruit, there's a lot of good stuff in the underbelly of the klippa. But and there's a nice expression in the Chazal. Its destruction is its rectification. Its destruction is its rectification. I forget the Aramaic; it's just not coming out of my head right now. It's beneficial in that its benefit. Do you remember the mashal of the harlot and the prince? Mm-hmm. Okay, so was the harlot beneficial? Yes, it brought out a strength in the prince. So that's the benefit of the klippa, but it's an indirect benefit.
But
its destruction, or its thinning out, is its rectification.
We look at the mushel of the snail, it can't exist without its shell.
It can't exist without its shell. This world also can't exist without a shell. It's not a world. No, only, as we said earlier, oilam milashon helen. The only way worlds exist is because of concealment. But the shell of the snail tells us something, that if you remove it, it will die, right? It tells us that this klippa is part of the reality that God has made for us, and the purpose of that I see that you're saying if you remove the snail, the shell, the snail dies. So if we remove the klippa, everything dies. No, it's the opposite. It's the opposite. You want to realize that the klippa is part of the deal, and what part does it play? It plays two roles. One, remember, we're here about subjugating it and elevating it. Now, we use the mushel of destroying it to mean that we're destroying its illusion. We're destroying the illusion that it's not part of reality. That's the mushel of the shell, the snail's shell. It's an illusion to think that the klippa is not part of reality. On the contrary, the klippa is a big part of reality, and it's part that it plays in the game, in the screenplay. Its part is that it's there to create a challenge for us, and the challenge being to subjugate it, meaning so that its separateness energy is put aside, and something else happens, that we can transform that sense of its strength, its power, transform that power into kedusha. We can elevate it. Does that make sense? Or not?
Yes, but then, and I think this is what Yehuda's touched upon, do we, with our material eyes, we could never really see that it's not a klipa. Like it always looks like it's obscuring. I think the most that we could do, I'm sorry, I got noisy here. The most that we could do is acknowledge that it's actually from, some challenge is actually from Hashem. But could we?
Yeah, I think you can. Think about this. Think about, and I'm saying this because I'm thinking probably everybody has had this experience, when you can look back and say, had it not been the fact that I got fired in 1975, I would never have had the amazing opportunity to and struggle to make my own company in 1999. So that negativity was actually a positive force. I'm just using that as an example, from my own life,
Well, that's what I was exactly touching upon, that sometimes it seems like it's just the awareness it might be enough to just the fact that you, in hindsight, were able to see that darkness was actually a good thing, right. and that you're aware that you could turn it around, that you have this new consciousness. That in itself, I think, does not that not in itself, in a sense, destroy the klipa, like nullify the klipa.
You're right. It destroys the klippaness of the klippa and reveals its power to propel you to deeper reaches of godliness. Yes.
Right.
That's a good way of thinking about it. I mean, thank you for bringing it up. What you're really destroying is the klippa. The klippa itself has a power within it, right? Well, how many is the one we had the other day? The handle of the axe. Remember that beautiful little metaphor? Yeah. The power of the axe, right? From the wood in the forest comes the handle of the axe to make the axe which can destroy the forest. I think that's a very good, if you get that, encapsulation of the klippas. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I don't know if it does to anybody else.
No, I hope so. Well, maybe someone else will raise their hand. Maybe Rivka, your hand is raised.
I think we have to remember. Thank you. I think we may have to remember if there were no klippas, we couldn't exist. There wouldn't be a world like this. We can't exist in the presence of absolute etzem kedusha, that kind of stuff. And so it is a tool, like the handle, the axe. It's a tool for us to get closer to Hashem by our process, that we can be the klippas. So you're saying the klippas themselves are not bad. They're, like you say, a servant of Hashem. They're creating the world for us to use it and to transform it, and to not get. But the trick is not to get stuck in it, not to get pulled down into it, not to accept it as the reality.
Yeah, and there was one more thing. All of that is beautiful and true. When one more thing that we haven't mentioned, which brings us back to the Megillah, the metaphor of the horse, right? We mentioned this a few times. In chapter 6 of the Megillah, which we're going to read, when Adar Dashnas HaMelech, when the king awakes from his sleep. Now he sees what? He sees that there's a person that in his mind, he reads the Chronicles and realizes that Mordechai, Yehudi, actually saved his life by letting him know about this conspiracy against his life, where the two other people were plotting. And he turns to his advisor, Haman, and asks him, what should the king do to a person he wants to honor? And Haman, right, the klippa of klippas, gives him the answer, which is bring him, if you want to honor a person, bring him the horse, the garment of the king, and the horse of the king, and the crown which the king wears on his head. Those three things. And I mentioned that in the seminal mimer on that in Torah Or, which is beautifully, I just have to say, an amazing mimer of the Mittler Rebbe that's about probably 50 pages long, where he, in sum, and the point I just want to make, I'm talking too much here, is about the horse. But the horse, which is an animal, right? A nefesh habahamis. Nefesh habahamis, natural tendency is to conceal godliness and bring a person to do just humorous, coarse things, because that's what an animal does: sleeps, eats, etc. But the horse can take a person to a place he couldn't get on his own. The horse can take the Adam, which is the nefesh elokis, and here's that thing which I mentioned that we haven't mentioned, that the avoida of hiskapcha, hiskafti and hiskapcha of the nefesh habahamis, we're not killing it, we're utilizing it to actually bring ourselves to a higher place. That's the idea of the kick that it gives you, like when you transform it and you get impetus from something negative. And you look back and say, that was really a positive. It brought me to a place that I could never have got to on my own. That's a real positive function of the nefesh elokis, and it comes from the fact, as explained in other places in Chassidus, that the nefesh habahamis is rooted more deeply in God's consciousness than the nefesh elokis. Surprise, but that's the way it is. That's why. The Chassidus explains this very simply. That's why an animal has more power than a man, than a human, because it comes from a place of greater power. These are the gevuros of Olam HaTohu, and that's where it comes from. And with those powers, it can lift us up. So, thank you. With all that, I think I at least got a better handle on it.
That was wonderful. Great discussion.
Okay, great. Good.
And to go into Purim knowing that these klippas are just, they're tools for us to enable us to get closer to God and give him the greatest pleasure. Like if we navigate and deal with them correctly, we can give Hashem the greatest pleasure possible. Like actually give him simcha. I mean, what's better than that?
That's what he said on the page. This gives Hashem joy. Nachas ruach lefanav. Great pleasure in front of us, in front of him. Lepanemius, in his panemius. Okay, I think that's wonderful. Nice. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.
Happy Purim.
Happy Purim.
Whoever's here tomorrow.
Happy Purim. Purim Sameach.
Purim Sameach. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Happy Purim. Okay, bye.